Hello, members of the Hornet Nation. I'm Allison Garrett, the Emporia State University president, and it is my honor to welcome you to Alumni in the Spotlight. We are so pleased today to recognize one of our 2020 Distinguished Alumni, Karen Clegg. The Distinguished Alumni Award is the highest honor given by Emporia State University in cooperation with our Alumni Association. Since the program started in 1960, we have honored more than 200 amazing graduates of Emporia State. Congratulations, Karen. We're so proud of you. And thank you for representing Emporia State University so well. And to members of our audience, enjoy this interview with one of Emporia State's finest graduates.
Thank you, President Garrett. Again, welcome to the Alumni in the Spotlight series. My name is Dr. Mary Teal. I am the Dr. John C. Rich Distinguished Professor with the School of Business. Today, we're here to celebrate one of our 2020 Distinguished Alumni, Karen Kohler Clegg. Both work and deeds distinguish an individual. Karen Kohler Clegg has been distinguished by the work that she has done in deed. She got a beaming start by learning skills in the broad curriculum in the liberal arts and sciences at Emporia State. She continued by being active in service, patriotism, understanding, and responsibility, and she was invited into the Honor and Leadership Society. This ended with an undergraduate degree in education and English from the same institution. She further propelled to receive an MBA from Rockhurst University and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Kansas. In fact, she's the first woman to lead a business unit at Allied Signal, and she retired as the Vice President of Defense and Space for Honeywell Aerospace. Along with talent, she has sown her time. She has been active on for-profit and not-for-profit boards and organizations, including the American Association of University Women, the American Civil Liberties Union, and she's an active member of the League of Women Voters. And if talent and time were not enough, her work never ceases. She has also committed her treasure. Karen and her husband, Stephen, who's also an ESU alum, they've created a scholarship titled the Stephen and Karen Kohler Clegg Scholarship. They interview each and every applicant every year. They've also established scholarships at the Kansas State University, the Kansas City Community College, the Metropolitan Community College, and they've spread their treasure far and wide. So often when you give, by default, you receive. And she has been the recipient of many awards. These awards include the Community College Foundation's Vision Award, the Kansas Council for Workforce Education Leadership Award, and the Silicon Prairie Technology Association's Eye to the Future Leadership Award. These are all examples of her great civic leadership and the associated benefits. Ms. Clegg has firmly and finally established an illustrious mark on society. She is honored for yielding her time, sharing her treasure, and embracing her talent in influential and significant ways. Joining our honored guest today is our interviewer, Denise Cruz from Adams Gabbert Technology. You will have the opportunity to learn more about Karen Kohler Clegg, and then you'll have a chance to ask your own questions. To do so, please visit emporia.edu/live and submit your questions using the Q&A form found at that site. At the conclusion of the interview, if you have previously received a Zoom link, don't forget to join us for our after-party Zoom discussion. Here you'll have the chance for some one-on-one discussion with Karen Kohler Clegg. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce you to Karen Kohler Clegg and Denise Cruz.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Teal and Emporia State University for this evening. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. My name is Denise Cruz and I am CEO of Adams Gabbert here in Kansas City and a trustee on the Emporia State University Foundation Board. Tonight we have the rare opportunity to hear from ESU's distinguished alum, Karen Kohler Clegg. And I'm going to just move right into this. This is quite an evening and you guys have we have much to cover tonight. So Karen, first, I want to thank you personally for all of your accomplishments in education, law school, business, engineering, technology, English, and then investing in the community from your heart. Women like me who came right behind you, and then my own daughter's generation that came after me, are so grateful for your firsts. You cleared the path for many of us, and we're excited to hear more about that tonight. So for everyone, buckle up. This is going to be so much fun. So Karen, when we first spoke, we shared that we had a similar way we found Emporia State University. We got lucky. In life, we sometimes make good decisions when we plan, and sometimes we make decisions that we wish we could have changed, and then sometimes we get lucky in our choices. So tell us how you selected Emporia State.
Well, selection of Emporia State was mainly a process of elimination. I had been to the University of Kansas in the winter for a music festival, and I didn't like the cold and the snow in the hills. And at K-State at that time, you had to pass swimming. So I visited, and I'm not a good swimmer, so I visited the ESU campus with my parents, and I thought it was so pretty. And it was about the right size. I had a graduating high school class of 21, and so it wasn't an intimidating campus, and I'm so glad I chose it because my professors were outstanding, my classes were small. I think I got a very good education there.
It's a great story, great story. What's one thing you are so glad you did when you were at Emporia State?
Well, I started out as a chemistry major, and I didn't like the lab work. And so then I tried psychology, and that really wasn't a good fit. So I thought, and I recommend this to all students, take some classes that you really like. And I liked reading. I'd always been a voracious reader. So I started English classes, and I fell in love with the program. I had such excellent professors and wonderful discussions within the classroom, and they were all small size. So I became an English major. So what I loved about it was I had the flexibility to change, and I had good professors when I made that change. And that's one reason I really valued my education there, was the quality of the professors in the English department.
Yeah, I think we all have some great stories from some of the professors at Emporia State, and I know those that are there today. You mentioned one piece of advice already, to make sure you take classes in things that you love. Any other advice for students in the audience here for how they might gain the most from their time at Emporia?
I think it's important to take challenging classes. Just don't try to take classes that you think will be easy or that you'll do well in. Take some science and math classes. Take some classes where you work in teams, where you have projects. Challenge yourself, because school will be much more rewarding. And participate in some of the extracurricular activities if you have the time to do so, because there are some on campus, and it just broadens your horizons to do that. And then take the time to make some really good friends. One of my very best friends I met at Emporia so many years ago, and we are still good friends. And that's a very important relationship to me.
Yeah. When you were at Emporia, were there any opportunities that you missed that you wish you would have taken advantage of looking back?
Yes. Well, I graduated in 3 years, which was somewhat limiting in my opportunities, but I wish that I had taken some biology classes. I tested out, and I wish I had done that, because I think I would have been very interested in that. And I wish I'd participated in the choral music, in a chorus and a choir there, because I like singing. And I've started doing that much later in life. I sing in the Summer Singers in Kansas City. And I enjoy singing classical music so much. And I trained for that in high school. So I wish I had done that in college. That's one of the things I regret. And then not taking some biology classes. It would have helped in my later career if I'd had more science classes in college.
The choral program in Emporia is grateful I did not take it.
Well, they might have been for me too, but I think I would have done okay.
It was my gift to them. After you graduated, you had a pivotal 2 years teaching first grade, of all things. You told me everything you learned about leadership, you learned teaching first grade. Please tell us what you mean by that and why this experience created such an impact on your life and really your future career and so many others that you led.
Yes. Well, I had not one elementary ed class when I applied for a substitute teaching job at this elementary school in New Jersey. My husband had been drafted, and he was in the medics. He was a psychology technician. He was a graduate, by the way, of ESU in the master's program in counseling, and that's how we met. And we married while I was still in college. Well, shortly after we married and I graduated, he was drafted, so we went to New Jersey. So I applied for a substitute teaching job. And the principal, Mrs. Rafferty, who only had 2 years of college herself and had worked on the factory line for 25 years, hired me. And I kept saying, but you don't understand. I've only taught 2 weeks of vacation Bible school, and I have a little brother. And she said, you'll learn. And I called up my aunt who had taught 40 years, and she said, read the manuals and I'll send you some stuff. So I taught first grade, and I learned right away that I had to communicate at the level of the students, that clear communication was very, very important. And then when I say I learned everything about leadership teaching first grade, it was because I learned to set high expectations for the students. If you set high expectations, they will rise to meet those expectations. And I learned that at work too, that people want to meet those expectations, set them out clearly, communicate them clearly. Then mentor and coach people, help them achieve that. Now, I believe in giving people clear things to do and then delegating to them and let them figure out how to do it. And I also learned at that time in the mentoring and coaching process that if some student was failing, if some employee wasn't doing quite right, was it my fault? Had I not set the goals clearly? Had I not been clear in the expectations? And maybe they're in the wrong spot too. Maybe they've got them in the wrong job. So I set up the expectations, coach and mentor with clear communication, and then hold accountable. We all get grades, whether it's in school or in our job. So that's what I meant. Everything I learned about leadership, I learned teaching first grade, and leaders are teachers. Managers are teachers. It's the most important thing we can do, is to give people the tools to do the work and coach and mentor along the way, and then let them go at it, and it works. It's a success story for first graders, just like it is for adults and everything in life.
This was not nearly the only time, but certainly a time when you took a leap and it worked out great because you worked hard and you made it work out great. But certainly that had to be a leap.
It was a big leap. I worked usually 12 hours a day and on the weekends, just keeping ahead of that class, because in those days, they didn't even have workbooks at the school. You had to make your own worksheets. And first grade, you had taught them everything from their colors to their letters, because kindergarten was socialization. And I learned to love those kids. And then going to law school after that was a huge leap after communicating at first grade level. And I have to tell you a story about first grade. When I told the students that I was going to leave in May, a few weeks early, to go to law school, one little girl raised her hand and she said, "But Mrs. Clegg," she said, "I thought you told us never to be a liar. Why are you going to be a liar?" I said, "No, I'm going to be a lawyer," which just hit home again the importance of clear communication. There might be a little truth to that.
Good thing you cleared that up before she went home and told her parents.
Yes.
So, but that leads me to the next point, which is you did go to law school, and it was a pretty random situation that you solved a problem, and then your husband suggested you should go to law school. So you took LSAT, passed it, and ended up at KU Law School. So I think the audience would love to hear that story, because again, it was not a plan initially.
It wasn't. When I looked at my aptitude tests in high school, because we didn't have counselors, we just had an aptitude test that said librarian or lawyer. And when I started college, I thought I'd be a chemist, a chemistry teacher, then a PhD and a researcher. And I ended up teaching first grade. And then I go to law school because when my husband was in the service, of course, we didn't have much money, and we rented a place, and there was a rental dispute. And he went to the base attorney who helped, and he came home and he said, you know, you could do that. You could be a lawyer, apply. So I did. And that's how we ended up. And he went back to graduate school in theater design. And I went to law school in, I hate to say this, 1972. And there were not very many women in law school. It was the first class that had 10% women in the School of Law. And I formed another very good friend in law school. She's my close friend to this day, too. So
you passed the bar after you graduate from law school. And then you, at one point, put in your application, but before that, when you were a law clerk, there were some interesting things that you had to overcome, some obstacles. So describe a little bit about that, and then later your application to the Attorney General's office.
Well, the first day I went to law school, I rode with a student who lived in married student housing with me, and he turned to me and he said, you know, you really shouldn't be in law school. You're taking the place of a man. And he said, and your brain isn't wired right, and you're going to flunk. Well, I made much higher grades than he did, and I didn't flunk. And there was, most of the people at law school were very welcoming, including the dean, to women, but it was an unusual experience then for that many women to be in law school. And this is the importance of coaching and mentoring. I had a law professor in criminal law, Professor Meyer, and he placed students in internships in the summer and in criminal law. And he placed me with the district attorney in Shawnee County, which is Topeka, which was a plum job. And the district attorney, and I'd made the top grade in criminal law. That's why he did it. And unbeknownst to me, the DA told him, I don't want a woman. We don't have a woman law clerk. We've never had a woman attorney. And so I went to the DA's office for the first day of work, not knowing what had happened, how the professor had told him that if you don't take care, and you'll never have another law student from KU. So I went to work, and Gene Olander, wonderful person, took me aside. And he said, you know, there's some pretty rough language here, and I don't know if you're going to be able to take it. You know, I'm really worried about you. And I said, don't worry, Mr. Olander, I'll be fine. And a week later, he came back and he said, you're going to fit in just perfectly here. No worries. And he took me under his wing, and he gave me some of the best cases. And I worked with the 3 other guys there. And later he offered me a job all through the year, which I couldn't do because I couldn't go to law school and drive back and forth to Topeka. But that was a wonderful experience for me. And I also worked in the Leavenworth and Lansing prisons, the first woman law student to work in what's now the Innocence Project. And I actually got a guy out. So that was an experience, going to the all-male prisons and working. But again, Professor Meyer was very supportive and gave me the opportunity to do that. So my first job, there weren't that many jobs for women in corporations, even if you graduated at the top of your class. So my dad said, why don't you apply for the Attorney General's office? So I applied, and I got the job. I was the second woman to work as an attorney in the Kansas Attorney General's office. And after this number 2 in command offered me the job, he said, how would a salary of $10,000 be? And I knew several guys who just graduated my class were working there. And I said, I'll take what the men are making. He made a call. He turned around to me and he said, how does $14,000 a year sound? I said, I'll take it. So it was an interesting experience being a woman in those days. Now the classes are half women, you know, and women are heading major law firms. But it was different back then. But I thought my experience overall in law school was excellent, and I didn't feel really that much discrimination. Not in law school with women; it was the men in the bar were more had to learn that we were going to be there for good, and we could do a good job. We really worked hard, women attorneys, to do a good job in those positions.
You negotiated yourself a 40% increase before you
Yes.
stepped foot. That's not bad, Karen.
Yes.
Bad. So after you were working in the Attorney General's office, then you did apply and were hired by Bendix, which became Allied Signal, and then eventually became Honeywell in Kansas City. So I know you started as an attorney there, but if you could walk us through a little bit, you were an attorney, you ended up heading up the law department there, your progression that included business, engineering, and technology. I mean, let's face it, you were rocking STEM before STEM was cool.
Denise, that's so nice of you. Yes, I'm really into technology after working in a very high-tech company. That division of what is now Honeywell manufactures all the nuclear, non-nuclear components for nuclear weapons, the electronics, the mechanical products, the engineered materials. So it's very high-tech, and they make thousands of products, very small quantities. And we also make the trailers that transport stuff around the country, and telemetries, et cetera, et cetera. So I took a job there as an attorney, and my boss was a woman. We had a 3-person law department, and that place is a very inclusive workforce. Lots of women, lots of minorities given opportunities and mentored and coached. Eventually, I became the general counsel myself over the region. And in that position, I was one of about 12 on the executive team. So I was the attorney. The rest of them were running finance, engineering, manufacturing. But through that and through being their attorney, and I did employment law, labor law, government contracts, environment, safety, and health, I learned a lot about the business. And in that, as the general counsel, I was part of the team that went through the whole total quality movement, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, Deming's kind of stuff. So I took on the project of leaning out administrative processes, eliminating, simplifying administrative processes, and leading the team that looked at all of those procedures across the business. So that, I think that helped them see that I had the ability to go into business, the leaders, and to appreciate what I could do. And working in a teamwork, when you're telling people you're going to get rid of some of the stuff that they like doing, you have to be very diplomatic about it too, and try to show them the business reasons for doing that. So as a result of that, when our president retired and Lou Smith became president, he asked me to be his vice president. And he and Dana, the general counsel, years ago had mentored me, and Mr. Bill Sharp, a white male who'd been vice president, and Lou happened to be Black. And many people in the HR department and leaders had coached and mentored me. And Lou said to me, would you take over the administrative vice presidency, which would have been finance, environment, safety, and health, all the facilities, all the maintenance, building all the test equipment and tool design, human resources. It was a hard decision for me to make, because Lou said, you leave the law department, you can't go back to the law department, and you'll never get a position higher than this because you are not an engineer. So I said, okay, finally I said, okay, I'll do it. Well, I went to interview at corporate office, and Frank, Lou's boss, I said, I know I'll never have, this is all the further I'll go in the company if I stay here. And he said, why? I said, because I'm not an engineer. And he said, well, I'm not an engineer. He looked across the table. I said, Frank, you're not? And he said, no, I'm not. And then a year later, Lou said, we're going to get you ready to be the president. You're going to be the first president of a business unit in what was then Allied Signal. And I went off to another business unit for a year and ran that, and came back and eventually ran manufacturing and engineering, and then became president. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had people who realized maybe potential in myself that I hadn't realized myself, and coached me and mentored me along the way and gave me opportunities outside my area of expertise.
I want to get to the mentoring and coaching and the champions that you've had, but I just want to pause and make sure the audience really lets this soak in, because you are so humble. You were the first woman to lead a business unit in Allied Signal, the first woman to lead a management and operating contractor in the nuclear weapons complex as president of Honeywell FM&T. 4,000 employees. that you were responsible for.
Yes.
That is astonishing, and that is one of the firsts that like I said earlier, I thank you for, but I just want to make sure everyone really hears that, because you glossed over that like, oh, well, yeah, and then there's that. So
There
I
was
just want to pause and acknowledge that.
Thank you. Of 6 years where I was the only woman at the executive table in Allied Signal, the only woman out of 25 people. And and it was one of the smaller business units. And I'll tell you, you are judged by how you behave and your expertise and how you present to the board of directors. And I think because of that, I then took another job outside Federal Manufacturing and Technologies based in Kansas City with operations in Albuquerque and Arkansas, and went on to head defense and space for Honeywell, Allied Signal, then Honeywell, which was a $3.2 billion business with work all over the world. And that was a very, very much a learning experience. And that's where you really step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, going back to the comment that you made about mentors, and you've spoken often about the roles they've played in your life, in your career. And I know you've also mentored many. And some of the scholarship students that some are on the call tonight, but that you and your husband's scholarships have awarded, have been enabled them to further their education beyond what they could have. So, and I know you get personally involved with them as well, which is such a compliment to who you are. But what advice do you have for students and young professionals today about mentoring? And often the second part of that question, I get asked a lot, how do you ask someone to be a mentor if you're a young professional or a young emerging leader?
First of all, I think you can look outside your company to be mentored. If you don't have someone that chooses you in the company, that's why it's good to get involved in community organizations that have goals that you're interested in and do volunteer work through them. And oftentimes you can find someone in a like business of yours that will mentor you and coach you. Within the company, I never asked for one. It just came to me naturally. But I think one thing I did that did help me get a mentor was I sent out a survey very early in my career when I was head of the law department and said, how can I improve my service to you? How can the attorneys and I do better for you? And how would you rate us on these? And that gave me the opportunity to talk to them. And I think then that gave them the opportunity to reach out to me and mentor me. But I think if you really want to get a mentor, you could ask even in human resources. Is there some, I first asked in human resources, is there some kind of mentoring program? Is there someone that I can work with that will help me, that will give me pointers? Probably it could be outside your department, even. It doesn't have to be in your department. Ask your boss, maybe. You know, I think you have to be bold enough to ask for it because many of them have had mentors. Once you reach a certain level, you're probably not going to have a mentor. Once I became president, I didn't have a mentor. But as you're starting the track, talk with other associates with whom you work and ask if they have a mentor, if there's someone who is mentoring them. Some of my mentors were outside the business. One was an attorney through my church, you know, that helped me when I had problems. Mm-hmm. So I would not be bold enough to ask, and I would also look at volunteer organizations where you can't have the opportunity to grow your skills and learn from other people. Early on as an attorney, I gave a lot of talks before the American Association of Personnel Administration, which is now the American Human Resource Association. And they asked me to be on their board and then their executive committee. I learned so much in that organization about executive skills from those men and women who worked in other businesses and how to serve on a board and act during a board meeting. And because I was in charge of all the committees eventually, how to get volunteers to work and to feel appreciated for doing that work. Because if you can get volunteers to follow you and work, you can certainly do it in your business. So those are just a few of the tips I would give people. Mm-hmm. And ask someone who's retired. Ask someone like me even, you know, if you want it. Someone like you, Denise, who's still working, go to them and find someone, you know?
Yeah. Well, I always say, you know, the worst that they could say is no. And then you're in the exact same spot that you are today. They're not your mentor today, but the majority of the time they're going to say yes.
And you gain. They will be so flattered that you asked them. I
Yeah.
remember when for a while we weren't hiring, and so we finally then hired, and they were younger people coming in, mostly just fresh outs, some more experienced. But I said to them one time, what is it like working here? Is it like working with your parents? They said, no, it's like working with your grandparents. But they said, the good thing about it is they all want to retire. So they're so willing to pass on their information. They're giving me great assignments early on, and they're helping me because they want to pass on their knowledge. And that is true. A lot of people want to pass on that knowledge and go to those people and seek out their help. And you're right. They can only say no. It's not going to hurt you.
So mentoring certainly is one relationship and something that's critically important. You've mentioned earlier this evening, and when we spoke, about how instrumental relationships in business have been, and lifelong friends in your life. So you've traveled all over the world. You've had a crazy schedule. You had much on your plate, and yet you've always made time to invest in your friendships. So talk a little bit about why, because I think it's one of the things that's easy to let go when there's only so many hours in the day.
Well, for one thing, you're probably not going to work your entire life. And you shouldn't let work be the only kinds of relationships that you have. And finding friends who share experiences with you, with whom you can confide, are so important in life, even in supporting you during business, because sometimes you don't want to talk to someone at your company, but you want the help of one of your friends, just a shoulder to lean on. And friends enrich your life, and we all have problems during life, and to have someone to rely on, some people to rely on. And I always felt it was very important that as I advanced through the corporation, I never left my best friend since I was 6 years old. We went clear through 2 years of college together, and then her third year, she left me for marriage. My friend that I formed in college, we stood up at each other's weddings, and we are still good friends to this, best friends today. My friend in law school, still best friends today. A couple of friends at work. I mean, and one here in Florida since I'm retired, and they have enriched my life so much. I wouldn't have given those up. And you just have to sleep less. You just have to be more because friendship takes work. Friendship takes time, and you need to invest in it, just like you invest in your family. And at different points of your life, you have different emphasis. I don't believe this. You can have everything all at one time, but you need to focus on certain things. And your friends will understand if you're busy sometimes and can't get together. But I strongly urge you not to leave your friends behind, but to keep them with you throughout your life, because your life will be so much better. Eventually, you will retire if you live long enough, and you will want those friendships. There's nothing like a long-term friendship.
No, they've got your back.
Yes.
Your life has been one where you are literally so well-rounded, with not singularly focused in an area at all. I mean, the arts, the symphony, the ballet. You do a lot for animals, for pets, for reading, learning, lifelong reader and learner, from what I gather. Master's degree, a bachelor's degree, a JD, just to name a few, and ongoing, as you said. So I look at that and I think the balance that it brings to you, and you look through different lenses than at life. So when you were at the height of your career, you served on a number of boards, right here in Kansas City, the Kansas City Chamber, Civic Council, for-profit boards like Kaiser Permanente, nonprofit and industry boards. And you've always paved the way. So I know since you have been in Florida, we're lucky to have you join us tonight. You founded the current ACLU chapter for Collier County, and you're a member of the League of Women Voters. There's so much that you have done and do, but you didn't just wait until your schedule permitted it. So talk to us a little bit about why you felt that investment in the community, and for those that you led. I know you led others to be involved in the community. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the community was always so good to our business and supporting our business. I felt we should support the community. So I encouraged each of my 450 managers or so to get involved in an organization in which they were interested, either on the board or doing work for them, even if it was Christmas in October, do something, and it will enrich you and it will broaden your skills, and you'll bring those back to us. And I grew up in a small town of 500 people, and my dad had been the mayor, the school board member, the county commissioner, and he just felt that I think his motto was, to whom much is given, much is required. And you live to serve other people. And my mother was the type that we made May baskets, Easter baskets, Christmas baskets, and took them to everybody in town because kindness was her motto. And I just felt that this is the way. I told people, I said, if you get involved in a volunteer organization, make your mistakes there. You'll come back a more informed person. You'll get a lot out of it, as well as giving to the community. Because I just think, and I know it's hard to do, especially now with young, you have to work long hours, and people work long hours. I did too. And you have families, and maybe you can only do it at certain stages, or not, do spurts of it here and there. But I just think it makes for a better rounded person to give back to your community. I really do. I think it's very important. And for us, it was good business too, because our community really supported us. When the government thought about moving our business to New Mexico, the community stepped up and helped us. That's why we owed the community. And it's good for recruiting. We needed engineers, mathematicians, really skilled laborers. And we had to put back into the community to help create those skills so that we could hire from the community. So it's kind of a circle, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I could literally ask you questions the rest of the night. But there are a lot of questions that are coming in. I already see that are some great ones.
Okay.
So before we move to the questions, I would love for you to share your leadership philosophy.
Yes. Well, I think it's very important, like I said, to set expectations for people, to mentor, to coach, to communicate well. If someone isn't doing well in a job, look at yourself. Did you give poor instructions? Do you have the person in the wrong job? And then hold accountable. I think that is so important. And I think it's also important to delegate to people, give them the tools, delegate within boundaries, and let them run their own little business, whether it's from the secretary to the tool and die maker to the engineer. They have to have responsibility. And then, for heaven's sakes, recognize them, respect them, thank them for what they're doing. More than money, it's appreciation. I believe in fair wages and benefits, but appreciate people and tell them that. And lead by example, work hard, deliver on time, and be kind to people. That's caring. It's all about caring. I had a class one time, and they said leaders care. They care about their people. If the leader cares about the people, their employees care about them. They care about what the leader cares about, and they will work for you. The only tie with customer satisfaction, the only correlation with customer satisfaction is employee satisfaction. You've got to make people know that you care about them and want a good work environment for them.
Yeah, I have been amazed getting to know you a bit, hearing your story, reading all that you've accomplished, and you are humble and kind and care. And it comes out. So we're very lucky to hear from you and your story tonight. So we're going to move into the question and answer section. For all of you that are part of this evening, make sure you go to emporia.edu/live and use the submit button for this interview. And then I will ask Karen the questions as they come in. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. And we'll take as many as we can. And then later, we're going to move into an after party Zoom. And at that point, we'll answer some of the questions if we don't have time now. But I'm going to start with a question, Karen, that came in that said, when considering students for scholarships, meaning the ones that you and your husband provide, what brings you to your final decision?
We do it objectively. We make a decision along with some professors at the university and staff members like development, and we do a scoring. The student must write an essay. We score the essay, and then we score the GPA, particularly looking at classes in their major, because our scholarships are for juniors and seniors and who are going to be science and math teachers. And so we do it objectively, and then The top scores are the ones who get the who are awarded the scholarship. And this year, well, from now on, there will be 5 juniors, and then they're eligible for their senior year. So 10 a year. And it's $3,500 a year now.
What a generous thing, and the great process. Yeah. When, if ever, in your life have you come across opposition specifically because you're a woman, and how did you overcome this challenge?
There's one that clearly stands out in my mind. I had to go to another business unit in Maryland to prove that I could step into a presidency role. And I went to talk with the president of that business unit, who did not select me to be a vice president over about 40 or 50 government contracts across the United States. And I said, Joe, I'd like for you to share your expectations with me. I said this on the first day I reported to work, and he said, I don't have any. You're a woman, you're going to fail. No one wants you here. We've never had a woman, and that's it. And I said, well, Joe, I disagree with you. I'm going to prove that I can turn this business unit around, and I think you will be pleased with the results. And I did. I worked myself 12, 15 hours a day traveling across the United States, and I cleaned up that business unit and turned it around. I didn't say to him, you know, you're biased or anything like that. I just went to work and met the people that I had in my unit, shared my expectations with them, and we went to work.
That's amazing. Tell us a time when you felt adversity took so much from you and then you had to overcome it.
It was probably one of the down days was I hadn't been president for too long, and the government was considering moving the whole business to New Mexico and to have the manufacturing done by a lab, which I did not think was cost effective. There's a great difference between manufacturing and a lab doing manufacturing. They make the designs and we make them manufacturable. And I drove to work and I thought, I don't know if I'm up to this or not, you know. I sat out in front of the Quick Trip across from the business, drank a Diet Coke, and said to myself, girl, you get going. You got to go in there and get it done. You got to make calls. You've got to keep this business here. And we did. That I felt really down, that I wasn't sure whether I was going to be adequate to the job. The people really had some question in the plant. Could a woman do this? A woman who wasn't an engineer? And I just said to myself, you're going to get in there and do it. You don't have time. You've had your pity party. And I did like this, you know, the little violin. You've had your pity party, get in there and do it. And that's what I did.
Short-lived pity party if all you had was a Diet Coke.
Yeah, not time for that.
In your career, tell us one of your aha moments that you told yourself, damn, that was awesome.
Oh, we won the Missouri Quality Award, the Baldrige Award. Eventually, when I left, they did eventually win the U.S. Baldrige Award. It's a quality award. But Missouri has one of the top 3 in the country with the state, and they come in and assess you and talk to your employees and talk to the legislatures and the business leaders and look at the quality program and how you treat your employees. And we received the award in a special ceremony. We took a busload of people, and the governor of Missouri because our business was in Missouri, awarded us. And that was one of the happiest days of my life, because it took the whole plant to do that. And we really worked hard on that application. And the whole business had to be just clicking on all gears. You know, we shipped almost 100% on time, almost 100% quality. And we did it. We did it. Yeah. The whole team did it. That was a very happy moment for me.
That award, I've been a part of a process before. That is an intense.
It's very intense.
Very stringent. So congratulations. Someone would like to hear a bit more about your experience with the Innocence Project.
Yes, back then, it's changed somewhat, but back then, law students, went to Lansing and Leavenworth upon the application of a letter from an inmate would write to us and ask us for help and tell us why they thought they shouldn't be imprisoned. And they also wrote to us from the women's prison, and I was the only one who went to the women's prison because I was a woman, but I also went to Lansing and Leavenworth, which is kind of a daunting experience when you're a young woman walking, 23 years old, 24, walking into cages with men in them. And I certainly think there needs to be a lot of criminal justice reform in this country. Well, you met with the prisoner. You looked at all of his legal files. You looked at whether there could be a habeas corpus written, a brief to the court, get the body out, of jail. And I was able to do that for one gentleman. He was released. The 10th Circuit affirmed the lower court that he should be released. He wasn't on death row. Not all of these people were on death row. They had felt they'd been incarcerated unfairly. And those are the kinds of cases we looked at and saw if we could do anything to help them. Yeah, we went once a week to the prisons.
Would have been daunting, but it had to be pretty rewarding when
it was. I only met one prisoner I didn't like, and he had murdered someone and wasn't, attempted to murder someone and wasn't. I sat right next to him at Lansing, and when he told me what he did, I realized who he was. He was the only one I didn't like. I really liked the prisoners, and I felt a lot of them shouldn't have been there, especially when the 3 strikes you're out were for such minor offenses, and they were in there for life. Yeah.
Seems like in your career, your life, you've done a lot to help people without voices and
yes,
giving them voice.
I think it's very important to put and my family did too, to put yourself in the shoes of other people. You have to have empathy and understand where they come from. People think that other people can pull themselves up or their bootstraps. Well, some people have no bootstraps, and those are the people that need help.
Who do you feel is your greatest influence, either in your career or personal?
I would say in my personal, my husband. We were, I was a kid when we got married. I was just 21. My husband was 25, 26. And we've been married for 50 years. And he's when you talk about a support system, if you're married and you have a spouse or a partner that isn't supportive of you, it's very hard to have your career. And he has always been very supportive and always encouraged me to take on new and different things and not be afraid. So I would say my husband in my personal life in particular. And in my professional life, I would think Lou, who was my mentor, and Bill Sharp, who was the vice president, and people like Jimmy Banks, who was in human resources, and Chuck Miller and John Clegg. Those people were indispensable. They hired me, first of all, when I came with my resume stapled upside down. I rushed from a court hearing there, and they still hired me, and they always supported me. And I think they made a big difference in my life. Yes.
Great. What accomplishment in your life so far, I love that, so far, are you most proud of?
Well, one is that I survived being the only woman with all those men in Allied Signal or in the nuclear weapons complex, all of them nuclear physicists or engineers, but me, and all men. And the other is that I think I have a very loving relationship with my niece, 2 nieces, and my nephews and their children. They're really important to me. I really do enjoy spending time with them, and that I have such wonderful friends from all stages of my life, and that takes work on their part, and they give me their time, and I'm so grateful that I have the friends and the kids.
Lucky nieces and nephews. What does being named one of ESU's distinguished alumni mean to you?
Well, it was a shock, to tell you the truth, because I think there's so many other people. And when Jose called me up and was so friendly, I was running in between 2 meetings and came home to fix a sandwich for 15 minutes. I said, well, what is all this about anyway? And then I was delighted. I was shocked. I don't feel very deserving of it. I don't think that what I've done is all that unusual anymore, but I thought it was a very nice of the university to do that. Very honored, because when I see the other qualifications of the other people, and my interviewer included, Denise has a fabulous career and story. I just feel very honored.
You are well deserving of it, obviously, as we've seen tonight. The next one, the quick one, just how many degrees do you have?
3. I have an undergraduate degree, a law degree, And then when I was about 39 years old, the company asked me to go get my MBA at the Rockhurst Executive Program, which was a 2-year program where we worked in teams, which was a unique concept. I had to bring back those old math skills a lot too.
Were you a first generation college student?
No.
No.
My great aunts had gone to college on my mother's side. My aunt was a graduate of college and taught for 40 some years. My mother has 2 years of college. So I was not a first. On my father's side, I would have been the first to go to college, but not on my mother's side. And my grandfather graduated college.
There are a couple more questions, and I'm sure there'll be probably more that are going to come in, but I think we can probably move on to the after party, and we'll have an opportunity for the students to ask a reflection question or answer a reflection question, and then we can have a few more questions to you as well, Karen. So to everyone that's participating, at this point, we're going to move into the Zoom call. Don't forget to log on to the Zoom link that you received in your email with the password that was provided to you. And then when we get everyone in there, we will move forward with the reflection question and a few extra questions for Karen, because again, we're going to have to cut this off sometime before midnight, but we could go forever. So we look forward to all of you joining here shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.